Me personally, where do I draw the line between YouTube content, enjoying my cruise, vacation, and taking photographs? Let's talk about it. Hey, welcome to another video. You probably don't know, but in a past life, while I was in college, I worked at the college radio station, and I really enjoyed it. I always thought one day I would really like to actually own my own radio station. A few years after graduating college, I went to broadcasting school and got my FCC license. And I worked at a local South Florida radio station in Palm Beach County, which had a booming signal. Went for hundreds of miles, almost from Miami up towards Vero Beach, if you know anything about the eastern side of South Florida. Big signal. And I worked overnights because that's what you do when you first get into radio and you want to be on air. You do weekends, or you do overnights, or you do both. And I did weekend overnights. Even though it was a big signal, I didn't really enjoy working there as much. Not because the people weren't nice to me. They were very nice to me. It was a very nice place to work for. However, they played elevator music. And I really didn't get a chance to be a jock. What I really was a maintenance guy switching out these big reel-to-reel tapes that they had. And I didn't even get to read the news. Occasionally I got to read the weather. But it wasn't like a regular, more traditional jock back then where you talk in between certain songs and maybe do the weather, maybe crack a few jokes. I couldn't do any of that. So eventually I took a job with a much smaller station that was a pop station, still having to work overnights, weekends, which wasn't easy because I still had a regular job. And I'd work midnight till 5:30 a.m. on Sunday night, Monday morning, and I have to be at work at 9 o'clock at my regular job. So I wasn't sleeping from early Sunday evening until Monday night. So I worked for this small station, and the very first weekend I was there, very first night I was there, the person who was on before me, who was one of the regulars during the weekday slot, was in there with his girlfriend, and they were getting drunk, and he was smoking dope and the whole thing. And he didn't open the door to the studio where I had to work until literally 30 seconds before I was supposed to be organized and on air. And I hadn't worked at the station before. I was already on edge. Wasn't a good situation. Monday morning, the station manager calls me at my office and is annoyed with me and says, "I know you're new here, but you don't drink beer in the studio, you don't get high, blah, blah." And he's reading me the riot act as if I was the one who had done it. And I didn't want to be a snitch. I just said, "Look, sir, I know you don't know me, but if you knew me, you'd know I don't drink beer. And I certainly don't smoke dope. So it wasn't me. And I'm not dumb enough that on my very first night, I would do something like that. All I'm going to tell you is it wasn't me." That was the last I heard of it. So maybe he figured it out, but I held my ground. So a month or so after that, he invited me to a staff meeting on a Monday after work. And again, I had been up since Sunday afternoon, and I worked all day Monday, and now Monday afternoon at 5:30, 6 o'clock, whatever it was, I'm going to a staff meeting, and I'm already ready for bed and go home, see my wife, have some dinner, and get some sleep. And I have to sit in this staff meeting, so I was probably grumpy to begin with. But all he could talk about in the staff meeting was how we needed to be like this other station. And the other station was a booming signal, not the one I worked at, but the number one station in the area that was a pop station, which in a way was their competitor, but in a way it wasn't, because they had the signal, the number one station, their signal was 10 times stronger, literally 10 times stronger. So there was no way they were going to compete with the audience. They couldn't possibly get the same amount of audience because they didn't reach as far. Their signal wasn't as strong. But he kept going on and on and on about how we needed to be like this and how we needed to be like that, and and finally he said, "Are there any suggestions on how to do this?" No one really said anything. At the time, I wasn't a complete novice to business. I was the chief financial officer at Jet Aviation. And I had a business background. I had an accounting degree. I knew something about marketing. I knew something about finance. I knew accounting. I knew how businesses worked in the background. Maybe more so than some of the other people that were sitting in the room. Maybe not. I was young. I didn't have near the experience that I have now, but I still had a bit of experience in what he was trying to talk about. And so I made the comment of, hey, why don't we not try to be that other station? Why don't we try to just be the best version of who we can be? We can't be that other station. So why are we trying to change all the things we do to match something that we can't possibly match? Well, if I thought I was on thin ice before with the station manager, I got even on thinner ice and maybe learned sometimes that when people in position of power are asking for advice, they're really not looking for advice. They're just opening their mouths. He was someone that just liked to open his mouth and didn't really want to listen. He got fired soon after that. But whatever. So my point to all this is, with my YouTube channel, I decided long ago, all I can be is the channel I can be and the channel that I want to be. I can't compete. I mean, I guess I could, because I have the same advantages that any other channel, the big photography channels, do here on YouTube. But I find, and this is not a criticism of the big YouTube photography channels, it's really not. I admire the heck out of the names that you know. I really do. Those guys and one woman that I can think of, they work very hard and they have massive channels, and I respect them a lot. But they're as much filmmakers, and maybe more so filmmakers now, than they are photographers, or at least what they show. And I don't really want to be a filmmaker. I just want to talk about what I want to talk about and share some images now and again. And if something strikes me to talk about, then I talk about it. Good, bad, or indifferent. I was watching somebody's video just yesterday, and they were talking about how there's so much bad advice from other photographers on YouTube. Maybe that's true. Who knows? It's why I try not to do too many reviews and things like that, because it's not my thing. So I try to just be who I am. So that's a long-winded way of saying that when I go away on these vacations, I don't try to copy the big channels and all this B-roll and those kind of things, though I probably will scatter some B-roll throughout this video because I did take some. That's not who I am. It's not who I want to be when I go away. I did a video on Iceland and didn't get that many views. And I had B-roll and those kind of things. I had music. I did one when I went away to Banff last year. Same thing. Didn't get many. So I can just be who I am. And so in this video, I just wanted to talk about, I went on a Viking ocean cruise, which is very different, as I found out, between an ocean cruise and a river cruise. Now, I knew there were 900 and some passengers on an ocean cruise versus 200 passengers or less on a river cruise, and so the river cruise should be more intimate. What I wasn't necessarily expecting was the ports. On a river cruise, a lot of times you dock right at the town you're going to be in. So during the day, you can get on and off the ship if that's what you want to do. Or you can get off in the morning, go look around the town, come back, have lunch if you want to. Or you can, let's say you're in a big city like Vienna. You don't really necessarily want to work your way all the way back to the ship to get lunch. You can have lunch in Vienna. But the point is, you can spend a lot more time in those towns than I found on an ocean cruise because a lot of times the port where the ship was docked was not the town you were staying in, or you had to get a bus to where you really wanted to be in town. The only one that wasn't necessarily like that was Monte Carlo. Now we went from Venice, and even Venice we stayed in a hotel on a little island. So we had to take a boat onto Venice and back, and it was about a 10-15 minute boat ride, which wasn't bad. But the point was I couldn't just get up, wake up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the hotel and walk out and walk around Venice while it was quiet, because they didn't have the boat running yet. I had to wait until 8 or 9 o'clock, whenever that first boat was, and then take it over to Venice. So there are those disadvantages like that on an ocean cruise. Now, Viking itself, it doesn't matter river or ocean. The ships are impeccable. They're outstanding. The employees are outstanding. The organization that they have is outstanding. The food is probably above average for cruise ships. The people who take care of your stateroom are always outstanding. And so it's hard to be critical of Viking. I'm not trying to be critical of Viking. I'm just trying to let you know there are differences between an ocean cruise and a river cruise. And because of that, I took different lenses. I took, for this particular cruise, now we went Venice, we had 2 stops in Croatia, which were okay. We went to Dubrovnik and Split. They were okay. You could tell that they're developing as tourist locations, but they're not the same as Venice or Rome or that type of thing. We went to Corfu in a Greek isle, which was outstanding. We also went to Burano and Murano before we left the Venice area, which I really enjoyed. I wish I had more time. Then we went up into Naples, Rome, Florence, though we ended up going to Pisa. And yes, the building does lean. It is a lot bigger than when you see it in person. It's a lot taller and bigger in person than when you look at it in a photo or a video, at least to me. We went to Monte Carlo, we went to Marseille. Marseille really surprised me in that it was a much bigger town than what I was expecting. They say it's twice the size of Paris, and I guess I believe it. It was pretty big. And then we ended in Barcelona, which I wish we had far more time in Barcelona. Barcelona is a very interesting city, and if you do go there, I would recommend spending a few days there if you really want to see it. It's a really lovely city to visit. And then we went home. So it was a little over 2 weeks. But like I said, I took a Nikon Z8. I took a 28 and a 50 millimeter prime lens. Do I regret it? No. Do I wish at times I had the 24 to 120 Nikon lens with me? Yes. But I can't have regrets. I can't look back and say, well, if I did this, I did this. Because I always come back thinking, well, I missed this shot, I missed this shot, I wish I had this shot. You just have to be happy with what you have. And so for me, it was really a balance between enjoying my trip with my wife and meeting some new people, made a couple new friends, trying to grab some images along the way when I could, and try to get some B-roll and maybe come back and put one of these videos together. And so for me, again, I don't try to be, I don't go with the intent of making a YouTube video, and it's probably obvious by these videos, but I already know that. And so I do appreciate the people who do watch my channel and put up with it. And I am going to post some photos. If I haven't already, I've probably already put a few photos up, but I'll put some more up. And if you have any questions or anything about the cruise or even the lenses I took the Thypoch 28 F1.4 lens that's designed for the Z, and I took the Voigtlander 50 F2 Apo, both manual focus lenses. Did I miss shots because they were manual focus? Yeah, I missed a couple here and there, but not a lot. And again, do I wish I had a longer reach at times? Do I wish I had a 200 or a 300 millimeter lens? Yeah, but probably not enough to have been carrying them all around. I tried to carry a little bit lighter bag. I had a Wander 9-liter bag, so I had the camera and I had 2 lenses. I had a spare battery and a spare card. And that's really all I walked around with the whole time. Sometimes I had my little handheld camera with me. But I don't go with the way some of these guys do with extra tripods and extra cameras and take multiple angles, obviously, because I don't make a living at doing these videos. I do them just to have fun, and because I'm not on the radio anymore at 104.3 WEAT FM. I don't do that anymore. I just do these YouTube videos. And so anyway, again, if you got any questions, issues, give me a shout out. I do appreciate all the comments I get. I try to respond to all of them. So I do respond, and I do appreciate it. And I very much appreciate the people that do watch my videos. I really do. And I know that I have a few very loyal followers that I very much appreciate. I don't want to shout out names because I know I'll forget 1 or 2 and then they'll feel bad and I'll feel bad, and I don't want to go down that route. Thanks again. Enjoy some of the photos I've been popping up. Until next time, I'll see you soon. Bye for now.